and reading an hour a day. It could be, and to find, if you ask what are good habits, you have to look at successful people and see what are the habits that successful people have, and just do more of the same. You see, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to see what are the habits of successful people, and you go ahead and you adapt those to your life. So identify what habit you want to add, or what kind of new behavior you would like to add. 2, identify what is your representation of that habit. For example, if you want to wake up an hour early every day, if you mentally represent that as hard, as something that you're gonna have, it'll be in anguish every morning, having to wake up an hour early every day. If that's your representation, then your belief system will not allow you to bring that new habit into your life. So you need to identify what is your real representation of that habit. And the last step is very simple. Take that representation and create a positive representation of that behavior or habit. For example, for things to change, you have to change. There was a point in my life when I was very young. Of course, I went through a lot of trouble. If you know my history, my bio, and I used to blame a lot of people. Well, not a lot of people. I used to blame everybody for my problems, my situation. And it was actually the birth of my daughter that caused me to look at myself, caused me to look within. And I discovered that for things to change in my life, I had to change. But why can't people change? Well, the first reason why people can't change, I believe, is their belief. In order to change the roots, you have to change the roots. And the roots are like your belief system. Metaphor for what change really means. Let me explain. Now, we're talking about for things to change, you have to change. But people say, oh, I started going to the gym. I don't see any results. I didn't lose all the weight. Well, you've been stuffing your face for 15 years. Of course, you're not going to see instant change. People expect instant results right away. You've been doing an action for 15 years that has created your current results. So, what happens? Just like the changing of the seasons, there's always going to be a little residual from the last season, and I call them residual demons. Like distractions. Like, we've all seen the show Biggest Loser. People are 500-600 pounds. They lose 500 pounds. How's that possible? And everybody walking around, they can't do it. It's because they're focused on one goal. They're isolated from the world, and they're hyper-focused, and they're able to achieve that goal. So, some of these residual demons are distractions. Television, friends, family. You gotta be disciplined. You gotta turn the TV off and focus on your goal. Successful people to make a decision. It takes forever to make a decision, and once they make that decision, they change their mind quick. Successful people make decisions quick and take forever to change their mind. So, unsuccessful people take forever to make a decision. They spend all their time asking people, they spend all their time seeing what they should do. Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? And once they make that decision, they see that it's too hard, and then they change their mind quick. Successful people make a decision quick. And if they make a mistake or they feel that it's too hard, they stick with it. They stick with it because they made that decision, they need to be true to that decision, and they need to continue on. And eventually in time, it proves that by them sticking with it, it was the reason why they were successful in the first place. So your ability to make a decision Just make a decision. Stumbled upon one of my videos, or you probably read books in the past. You know, you're interested, and you've probably written down some of your goals, but what is keeping you from acting on those goals is fear. Fear of being uncomfortable, fear from of painful experiences. I mean, the only two reasons why we're motivated to do anything is either to avoid pain or gain pleasure. And at this point, what's keeping you away from your goal is the fact that you want to avoid something painful. You fear. But one thing I heard from Les Brown is that the wealth of the world, it's not in the banks or the mints or anywhere but in the graveyard. Because in the graveyard, you will find people that had great ideas that were never heard, great poems that were never heard, great stories, great songs, great inventions, great cures to diseases, because they were too afraid to act. They were too afraid to act on their goals. Act. They were too afraid. So fear can sometimes paralyze people. And you need to ask yourself, is fear paralyzing you right now? I want to tell you something. That life is too short. It's too short to play it safe. I like to tell myself, listen, if you're comfortable, to be comfortable is like the kiss of death. There is no comfort in being comfortable. That's kind of a funny saying, but there is no comfort in being comfortable because it's no match to the things that you want. Okay? So the vlog, what I want to talk about today, it's something that I see. It's a concern. It's really a concern of mine. And for me, 10 years ago, well, the vlog is going to be about the news and the information that we have access to. Now, before, the information would take longer. Let's say, before newspapers, something would happen in a town, and it would take maybe weeks before that situation would get around that town. It would go on to other towns, and maybe 10 years later you would hear the whatever the situation that happened. Then newspapers came, and we had access to information a lot faster, but it was not at the speed that the information that we have today. We're getting bombarded with so much information that that I feel it's putting garbage in our minds. So this is why I made a choice not to watch the news at all. Now I know people say, well, how do you get informed? You hear about things, but I don't watch it. And it caused me to really examine the things that were holding me back. And I think this anger was one of the things that was holding me back. And they're like blinders. And you can't really see opportunity. You can't see what's in front of you if you're holding on to this anger. So at some point, I had to let go and forgive those governments, forgive the educational system, forgive anybody that had wronged me. Because until I did that, until I let go, I was not able to move forward with my life. I was not able to be open to the opportunities that were there waiting for me. So that's just a quick little vlog here for today, extending on some of the conversations from last night, talking about forgiveness in this beautiful downtown Toronto. And we'll see you next Monday here again. But June 15th, don't forget, in Ottawa at the Best Western, I have you have the opportunity to change your life and decide what you want to do. And basically, I'm a big believer in the 80-20 rule, meaning that 20% of your activities equal for 80% of your results. 20% of your activities equal 80% of your results. That means 80% of your activities are just really irrelevant. You're just filling in time. So I like the book from Brian Tracy called Eat That Frog First. Basically, it's from the saying, I think it was Mark Twain that said, if the very first thing you do every day, at at the beginning of the day is eat a live frog, you pretty much can assure that the rest of your day will be easy. And that's a beautiful concept. So basically, what you're gonna do is you're gonna write everything you have to do. Everything. I carry this book with me, and I just write everything I have to do. I choose 3 items in that list that are the highest, most productive, the items that are gonna bring me the biggest result in my life. And then I choose one which would be the hardest. Usually the hardest is the wind. It was incredible until the jet ski started to stall. Boom, 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 boom. Oh my God, I ran out of gas. I ran out of gas in the middle of the ocean. And to me, what started to happen to me, and what happens to, I'm assuming most of you, is that your brain starts, creating these mental movies of all the possibilities, all the things that could happen to you. You could die from the sun. You can die of dehydration. You can starve to death. Sharks could eat you. Dolphins could eat you. Oh my God, I started to panic. And it was, it felt like an hour, but it really might have been only about 4 minutes. And as I looked down, I noticed there's a second gauge. That's right. There was a gauge for the gas. There was another gauge, I don't remember what it was for, and there was another gauge, a second gauge for a second backup gas tank. A smaller gas tank. A small gas tank for jackasses like me that like to go out in the middle. What you're auto-suggesting to yourself, your mind will create those things and add them to your experience. So they will bring these things to reality, positive and negative things. And sometimes we just tend to create more negative auto-suggestions for ourselves because of fears and other things. But let me continue reading. The cause was an involuntary auto-suggestion, EI, silent fear thoughts, emotionalized and subjugated. She overcame it by the following technique. So these are the technique. This is the technique that you could use in order to create your reality using auto-suggestion. 3 times a day, she isolated herself in a room. She sat down comfortably in an armchair, relaxed her body, and closed her eyes. She stilled her mind and body as best she could. Physical inertia favors mental passivity and renders the mind more receptive to suggestion. So when you're calm, when you're in your calm state, you're more receptive to auto suggestion. So the